To Tuesday, July 8th, market overview after basically we closed today. Um, I'm going to be going over the NASDAQ trade today, how the rest of the market played out, and then just going to do a little back testing session just to, kind of close today on a better note than the market, because obviously we've been in this big old consolidation. This morning, took an L on this trade, kind of put out a video around like 11:40, 12-ish. And, that's the market was just out of sync today. That's the only basically idea I could think about here. We wanted this lower 1 minute order block, and that honestly very surprised me. And I was not expecting that. And there even is a nice little 2 fair value gap trade right up in here. Come in there, rejection, long in that candle rejection, and then to the high. But very surprising day. We do have FOMC meeting minutes tomorrow, and usually this kind of news I just kind of like how bad, toss out the window, because it ain't really gonna do anything. They don't really, there's no release for data or nothing. But the market really did have a consolidating day as a result of that. That's my only guess. So yeah, just understanding that, you can follow your rules, your exact strategy, and you will still take losses in the market, and that's how it works. External factors are going to sometimes impact how you trade, what happens, well, not how you trade, but what happens, after you enter your trade. And there's nothing you can really do about it. But it's good to see that we had a good bias for today, followed all the rules, didn't over risk, and just basically did the do, and it just didn't work out. But yeah, very very simple day bias wise, just entry style and price action wise, very iffy ahead of our FOMC meeting minutes. That's still very surprising to me, but we'll see. We'll see if AM session tomorrow is probably going to be pretty bad, kind of relating to this, and then we'll find a trade in that 250 macro. That'll probably move us to some sort of liquidity, and then ES looking the same thing here. Just took the highs, nothing crazy. Our daily close, it should be like a doji, right? Our daily close will basically be a doji. Kind of expecting that inside range of the day. So then we're gonna have a daily high and a daily low to take out, and that'll be kind of in line with our bias of hitting 22750. Right around there is our weekly imbalance. So yeah, just kind of want to go over that and say, you can do everything right in the market, and you're still gonna get stopped in certain situations, and that's just what you have to do. So I want to do a little back testing, just because I want to see how an FOMC would basically kind of distort the market in future kind of references. So I'm gonna go to the meeting minutes and see when the history was. So we had one on May 28th, April 9th, and then February 19th. I think I'm gonna go to the February one. February 19th, I'm going to go to most likely, hold on, YT back, and then we'll throw in a little 50K. I got it all. And then, it's just honestly kind of surprising. I really would not expect this kind of price action today, but, that's what kind of happens. So here we go. So again, classic 2 fair value gap strategy. Keeping it very simple. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just basically, one strategy. And we're going to go at it. So what is this? I got to fix this somehow. Actually, no, we're going to do 632. Hold on. Next session, next day open. 6:30 New York time, right? Makes sense. Next day open, let's see what it does. 6:15. Yep. All right, perfect. So looking on the daily, we just broke our all-time highs. This is February 19th, right? Okay, all right, that week. All right, just broke our highs. So I'm looking for. Oh, this is way back when. Okay. I kind of have to. I have to get off my mind of today's NQ. So we have one fair value gap here, and then currently we could possibly create another one today on Monday, that trading day. So I'm not really looking for a crazy range expansion. Maybe higher, or maybe just something a little lower. But I'm not expecting anything crazy, and I would like to see a fair value gap get created in there. But that's not what has to happen. So we will just see. But remember, when we're at all-time highs, I don't want to be fighting. I don't want to be fighting that at all. Okay, I'm tired of having. Yeah, see, it won't even let me save stuff on here. All right, so yeah, we're obviously pushing up pretty strongly. We have a 1 hour order block right here. This is 6:30 morning session, so it's pretty early. But that is when trading would start for me. But on a Monday, actually, it is on a Monday, so we do not trade morning sessions on Mondays. So we will skip to the market open. That is my bad. So what I'm kind of expecting here is to come towards the sell side and potentially go higher, or we would take out this high and start to move lower. So I just skipped a little too forward, but we are at 9:30 now, and we just dumped. Some sell side I'm looking at is there. These relative equal lows that just got tapped into. Remember, on like a day like this, I don't want to be fighting, that bullish bias that we have larger time frame, especially if we have one fair value gap and then another one on the 4 hour. So let's just let it play out and see what happens here. Let's put in our first presented, which is right there. I believe there's a volume balance there. There's not. So we took out a little bit of relative equal lows. That's kind of the major sell side I want to see, unless that's kind of crazy to come down there. But we will see how heavy we are. So sleeping above first presented, getting some nice structure, coming into the macro here from 950 to 1010. I like how we're respecting this order block right now. If we can start to maybe get a move higher into our maybe 1 hour order block and our relative equal highs, that would be nice, because I believe we did not tap into that. Oh, we did tap into that 1 hour order block. So I will keep the relative equal highs in mind. But let me check if we hit an SMT with ES at these highs. I'm talking about these highs right here. Okay, we swept them, but barely, like absolutely barely. Let me just check S&P real quick. Yeah, we swept them pretty good. So we're gonna keep a loose bearish bias, but we will see. Yeah, so price is pretty consolidating up to there. Let me do this. So we're going to use this for the rest of the week. Okay, so price is starting to get up there. Very, very high resistance, I think, at this point. But we do have one open fair value gap right here. And I'm hoping for another one to get put in, and we do have another fair value gap that got put in, as well as a candle rejection. So as of right now, I don't know how confident I would be longing this. But let me take a look at ES. Yeah, ES is lagging behind a lot. This price action is just pretty whack. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna take this, but this would be a potential entry. If price wasn't so high resistance, it just looks like not good. So let's just cancel that because we didn't take it. So yeah, that would have been a stop. Well, not yet. Yeah, so price is just really bad on this Monday, and I'm just gonna go straight to the PM session, and we're gonna see what goes on there. But we did have the right bias for that sell side take, and then potentially a move into these highs up here. I'm gonna go to the 15. So we rejected those highs. Oh, wait a minute. That's why. It was some, notice what, wait. What was on this Monday? Yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense. It was a bank holiday. It had to be a bank holiday because this price action. And then we end at like 1 o'clock. So yeah, that was retard. Why? It really won't let me do it? Damn. Alright, well then we're gonna have to watch this go like this. So yeah. Yeah, so then there's that take of those highs. Yeah, this was definitely a bank holiday, because what is that? This entire move would have happened in the New York session. It would have been a much more cleaner to the highs if we had a regular day. So now we can go to our 6:30 open because it is one of those days. And now I'm hoping we did get our daily fair value gap, which we did. We had a daily fair value gap right at, it's pretty wacky. There's our daily fair value gap. So now I would look, even though we're pretty bullish, I would look for a retracement into there. I don't have to see that, but it would be nice to potentially get something lower that goes into there. I am keeping a mind on this 1 hour fair value gap. I want to see how price will react off of it if we get down there, because it is what sent us higher into this liquidity. I'm liking also these highs right here. They're just kind of like out in the open. And then I'm kind of disregarding these highs because we do have this 2 15-minute order blocks. This entire move is an order block that sent price down. So I do think this high up here is protected. And then we'll aim towards our potentially maybe even relative equal lows. Yeah, even on ES we have those relative equal lows. So that would be pretty nice. Let's see if we have any news or anything, maybe at 8:30, but I doubt it. I hate how FX replay doesn't show any of this. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So 6:30, we have our first fair value gap that got put in, and then we get our dip down. So yeah, looking at a little larger time frame, this is all just kind of, that's our 7 a.m. open. I'm waiting for our first presented, which is right here. That's our first presented of the AM session. It's our first fair value gap after 7 a.m. our 7 a.m. candle. This does not count. However, it does not count, yes. So then we have, this is our first presented fair value gap. And then at the same time, we also have potentially an entry here to the highs going up to here. But let's see what S&P did real quick. Yeah, we already swept those highs, or we left them relative. So that is personally something I do not want to really mess with. When ES takes like a highs, or it's like stronger. So say ES is like right here, that really doesn't give me much room in order to basically place anything. Like I would have to put my stop loss down here, and then what? If price wants to reverse from there. But that could be a hypothetical trade. But yeah, see, like that's exactly what I'm saying. We'll just take this high, and then we'll just start to move lower, and this high isn't even a 1-to-1. So no point to even take those types of trades. However, we did take these highs now, and if I can start to see some rejection towards our daily fair value gap, that would be nice. We have 3 fair value gaps in here, so there's no entry or no trade in here. So there's a take of the high again, and even higher to, I'm thinking our 4 AM high. So, once we came up, I believe this is a 15-minute, also our 15-minute order block. We did come up into there, and then now we're starting to reject. What's it called? There's no trade or nothing in here. So, even though we wake up at 6:30 right here, and we get in the charts, and you want to see something, this could have been a good trade, but you see how price wants to paint outside the lines and then start to dig lower, tap into our first presented fair value gap of 7 AM, and then start to move higher to start taking out some liquidity before New York session starts. And this is the kind of stuff you have to keep in mind when you trade that session, because I want price to go lower for the day, but it's pre-market, it's not New York session, so I can't get ahead of myself. So I would expect price to start going higher. And right here we have a little low resistance run, little 2 fair value gap again, right here on top of our first presented fair value gap of 7 AM. And this trade, see how we lift these relative equal highs? This now kind of maybe gives me an idea that in the New York session we want to go higher. So this could be a possible short down to these lows in order to, okay, so perfect, we don't take those. And now since it's 8:25, I'll just skip straight to the New York session. But you see how, you can get really chopped up in here. 6:30 opens, we get our push higher. We fail to take any highs. We just kind of take internal liquidity. And then even if you try to take a sell to here, you can't. And then there is no entry in here with me. Here's our first fair value gap that gets tapped into. So that immediately disqualifies the entire move higher. So then now I will just skip forward to 9:30. So then now we have actual clear take of these highs, I would say right there. Still consolidating. And our 9, see what the heck. See, this is the type of strange stuff that happens going into New York Open, which I don't place any trades before 9:30 open. Like in this 8:15, 8 o'clock to 9:30 time frame, no trades in there because we can have stuff like this happen. It's mainly just consolidation. This really never happens, this crazy dump. However, we did take these lows and we left relative equal highs. There had to be an SMT up here with the ES for sure, which was right there. We have our SMT, and then we can also look at this 8:25, and we failed to take the high. 8:25, yeah, they're really out of sync. So let's see what we do. So straight dump into this fair value gap off open. This kind of tells me now that I would have a potential bullish bias on the day, unless we have some crazy. I don't know if I picked the wrong time because Trump's speaking 24/7 in here, but we will see. So currently waiting for my first presented fair value gap. I do not want to place a trade before that. And then we have our first presented right here, our first fair value gap after 9:30. And we have dug into this. And, something I want to kind of point out is our consolidation in this 1 hour fair value gap. You do see what kind of happens here. Crazy rejection. We start to consolidate a little bit. And that's kind of, what do we do here? We consolidate in the reverse. So that's kind of the tell of the fair value gaps on the larger time frame, especially if they're in a sequence of two of them. That's the one you want to see respected. That's the one you want to focus on. And yeah. So then now I would basically kind of have this low in mind, unless you know, a shift higher would be kind of crazy here. So yeah, we are just dumping. Like, I don't really understand what is going on in the market to just dump like that, but maybe I just picked a really bad week to backtest. However, it doesn't even matter because, you know, you're not looking for, you know, 10K a week. You're looking for, you know, 1 to 2%, maybe just a week. And that's on the minimum side, you know. Okay, so here we go. So we have our daily for value. I want to make these lines white. Can't even see them. All right. So then we tap into our daily consequent encroachment right here. There's still no entry for us in here. This is just a crazy dump. I don't know what's going on. So now I'm starting to, I like to see this consequent encroachment respect after seeing us take the daily low in our daily fair value gap. I like to see price reject from here. I would not really want to see anything lower. We do have, you know, this south side, some more south side down here, but it's that imbalance that I believe that price really wanted before it wants to head higher into more all-time highs. So we have two fair value, we have three fair value gaps right here, and still sitting on our hands, not picking anything. So we did have a respect of our old first presented fair value gap that sent us lower, most likely into our daily levels, and price is just dumping. You know, this is not something I would want to see in our daily fair value gap. I would hypothetically want price to come into it and then show some signs of rejection if I'm bullish, but price is not showing any sign of that at all. So here we go. It is only 10:02, keep that in mind. So more chop, and then we get in a two fair value gap setup right here. And the reason I kind of like this, even though, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's not really probable, I would say, is that we do have some more liquidity, and our next daily fair value gap is, you know, much lower. It's around, you know, 200 points away, or actually, yeah, about 200 points away. So what I like here is our daily breaker block. And if I'm looking for targets to the south side, I don't know if we want to reach major lows or, you know, some type of, you know, liquidity. I'm going to start targeting things that are basically, I can mark out, I can just identify as this lower quadrant, as this of the daily fair value gap. I want to start looking for daily targets, prices, not really liquidity, just where, you know, important levels rise. So on the 1 hour, it's pretty evident that we have a crazy dump. 15-minute, we're leaving everything open. We have one fair value gap, two fair value gap, leaving that open. We also inverse this on the 1 hour. So I allow this 1 hour to basically be freed from anything up here. And then on the 5-minute, on the 5-minute, we have a two fair value gap sequence. First is this up here. But then once I see this consolidation on top of this 1 hour fair value gap, I like to see that boom. We have our first fair value gap, and we have another one right here, and we have a rejection. So this by itself could have been an entry to the downside, but remember, we were still bullish biased. So now when I want to aim towards something, I'm going to be aiming for something like this with a stop above that high, aiming for our daily low, which our daily fair value gap low. And if you look on ES, we don't have any SMTs. We basically wanted to come in, tap into our upper quadrant of our daily fair value gap, and then start to move lower, in my opinion. I believe we also had an order block on the 1 minute. If you look right here, we have two up close candles before our big old down move. So I would identify this as a order block. And then we have our first fair value gap, which would be identified as a breakaway. not text. First fair value gap, which would be identified as my breakaway gap. And then we have our other fair value gap, which I would like to identify as our SIBI, our sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency. And then I would hope that would take us lower into this daily lower quadrant 2.5 and our lower quadrant, the daily fair value up low. And this is also on top of our daily breaker on the larger time frame. So on this trade, hypothetically, this would be an A+ setup, I'm thinking. However, I'm including the fact that we had this crazy dump. The 15-minute is very inefficient, and we have one high, two high, and then we're kind of taking a sell and a deep discount. So I'm going to only risk about 250 on this, so 50% of my total risk on the day, and that would lead to about 11 to sell. I can't see my okay. I can't see when to sell because my computer camera is there. So then we have that, and then let's see what happens. So we got stopped, and then price is doing a whole bunch of nothing. So great example of, market conditions, not necessarily probable. Shorting a deep discount, you don't want to do that. The setup was there, low risk. Essentially, what can you do? There's really not much you can do. We were respecting this, order block right here that broke us lower. This is an okay trade that I would classify as, a good loss. It just decided to pan outside the lines a little bit, and, is an overall pretty wacky day. We dumped over 200 points. So, kind of selling late is not ideal. Anyways, let's go and see what price wants to do now. Oh yeah, let me get larger time frame. So yeah, we're just consolidating this daily fair value gap. I'm not even going to touch PM session because that is not even worth it. Okay, so we were at 645, I believe. Yes, 645, and we're back in our daily fair value gap level. And honestly, from now, I'm mixed buys. I would like to see price reject out of here, but until I see a candle close out of it that is bullish, I'm gonna have to be sitting on my hands kind of, and being kind of loose biased. We had this crazy dump, doesn't really make sense. Something had to have happened in the market. I think it was tariffs around this time on the 18th of February, because Trump just got elected, and then he was mixing some stuff up. So who knows what happened? All right. So coming into 6:30, we are at one of our first presented fair value gaps. I believe is our Monday one. And for the day, I'm going to be honest, probably loose bias. I really don't have a strong bias. Like I said, we're in this daily fair value gap. It's still kind of, we had a rejection out of it, but all of a sudden we're back in it. So, that might be showing some weakness to see, lower prices, but we will see. 15-minute looks clean. This fair value gap is our second fair value gap in the sequence. So hypothetically, we would want to see price go lower. And then we have 7. See, this is the crazy. I think this is just a crazy time in the market. We're having what kind of, how big are these candles? Of course, it won't even show me. Oh, okay, 20. That was a 25-point candle. Okay, so I guess that wasn't that crazy, but it is kind of crazy. Let me get our first presented, and we have our first presented, which is laid on top of our old. Actually, no, this is our first presented for value. So yeah, we do have a crazy session ahead of us, making 25.7 7 a.m. candles. Okay. So now we have this big push up, 7 a.m. Pretty random. I would not expect that going into session. There is 2 fair value gaps there, but that is not a setup. And it looks like we have some sort of news coming. Possibly, because this is just a pretty wacko AM session. So there was a 2 fair value gap set up here. In the macro, I guess you could say, you know, once we get a close out of here at A13, but that is very messy. And usually once I see that fair value gap, I want to see price leave like immediately. But since we consolidated, it's just sitting on hands. And then now we have our 828, so there's no news on this day. Yeah, most likely going to be seeing lower prices today, because why would we be coming into this daily fair value gap even lower? Just doesn't make sense. I'm just gonna skip forward straight to 930. Just want to kind of look and see. Yeah, that's like a crazy push up. Like just it doesn't. What is this? 353. Like, you know, you could try to see what is this? What is all this stuff? It just doesn't make much sense. I should have picked a better time frame or better week to trade, to backtest on. But you know, you're not always gonna get perfect market conditions. All right, so we have 930 open. You know, I would want to see us potentially move lower. We do have a lot of buy side remaining above. Larger time frame, we're still doing a bunch of consolidation. I can't even see the chart. Potentially these lows are in, our daily low is in question. We are still holding strong. See how we tapped in this upper fair value gap? That's not really what I want to see. That shows that, you know, price could be bullish. So we have our sell side that was just taken. So we were taken, and then we start to get a push higher. And then, yeah, you see, so like right here, you know, we have our sell side, our breakup structure, we have 2 fair value gaps, and then, you know, this, you know, it respected our fair value gap, but did we get a bullish close? We did not. So there's no entry to our highs. There's nothing there for us. And you know, the FX replay chart is a lot more different than the NASDAQ regular chart, like on TradingView. This shit don't have volume imbalances. It don't. So like a lot of stuff is just kind of wacko. So we did take out buy side, and now we could potentially start to move lower. This could be a pretty bearish day. You know, we're back in our daily fair value gap. We came back into it. I'd want to see price leave it. However, we didn't. So that's kind of, you know, strange. It doesn't make sense for us to come back into something, especially such a strong PD array, our daily fair value gap, and then start to return back into it, except for liquidity. But we had our liquidity here, you know, pushed up, failed, took our high again. Now we're starting to move lower. Suspicious. So we do have our first percent fair value gap right there. So that is a first percent rejection. There's no double fair value gap sequence in here. This reminds me of like my old setup. I would take a short off first percent right there, and you know, we can kind of see how price plays out. Okay, more just consolidation, but I am liking sells more and more as we price plays on. I'm just, you know, kind of looking for maybe like some movement here. Yeah, so price just wanted to leave straight to our this reminds me exactly of a day we had last week where price left 2-minute fair value gap, left 2 of them, and then just started dumping down to our sell side. But yeah, this is just messy. However, we do have 1 fair value gap right here. And we have another one that just got respected right here. I don't see a reason for price to come up anymore. There should be no reason for price to want to reprice higher. So this honestly looks like a good short in my opinion. If price wants to reject higher, then I will let it, but I want to see price come down to potentially this low that we have over here. We just look pretty heavy with a pretty nice buy side sweep. Nice buy side sweep. We took our sell side, took our buy side, start to move lower. I guarantee there's a smaller time frame setup in there. If we look on ES, this is probably like one of the worst charts I've seen in a long time. Like, what even is this chart showing me? But yeah, I think we're pretty bearish on the NASDAQ. So let's just take a look and see. There really shouldn't be any reason for price to go higher, in my opinion. We want to leave that other fair value gap intact. And then let's just see what happens here. Keep the same risk. It's just weird market conditions. I remember going into kind of, the start of the year, just having some strange market conditions. Just because of all what Trump was doing. He was doing a bunch of crazy stuff. So yeah, this that was a pretty good stop. Honestly, these market conditions are just I'm not really liking it. It's kind of just like a whack. It's kind of whack in my opinion. I don't really like this week at all, but it is what it is. That is another loss. What kind of should have been the tell was the rejection here. We should want to see candle come out here and close, but it did not work really. This first prevented fair value gap short would have been nice, but yeah, there's no like full confirmation here for me. But that is another 250 loss. God, I picked such a bad time to trade this. I remember how bad this PA was. Like, what are we doing? So we are at 645 again. So we decided to come all the way back up and take out our previous high, leaving our relative equal lows down here. And what really surprises me with these moves, like when I get stopped, is that there's no entry in the opposite direction. For me, there is no confirmation. There's nothing for me to enter off of, even to go the opposite direction. And usually, if I'm going to be wrong, it's going to be, there's going to be a setup in the other direction, and it obviously just not work. So I was liquidity in there, but that is all right. So we took out our daily high. I'm kind of looking at this high over here on NASDAQ. Pair of relative equal lows on there. And let's just see what happens here. So we slept our lows, and we do kind of want to start to push higher towards our potentially this high and then that high farther up. I will just continue to play it out. Wow, I just can't, like, personally, I don't know if you can find a trade in here, but where's your trade? Where can you find a good high conviction trade? After like, what is this? Barely sweeping sell side. These market conditions. That's why I remember I was getting chopped up in the week. I'm just gonna skip to 9:30 open. Yes, we consolidated basically the rest of the morning session. around that first presented fair value gap of I believe it was Monday. I need to start labeling that so it's easier to see. I'm gonna come in here and mark out our first presented fair value gap of 7 a.m. session, which would be right down there. Extend right, and then we reacted off at once and then it started to go higher. So like I said, I'm still bearish. Why is price hanging around so long in this daily? Why did I just even do that? In this daily fair value gap, which doesn't make sense. Like, let me see what's going on right here. 1, 2, like, are we gonna have another inside day? Like, this is why the price action on some of these weeks is just bad. And honestly, this is a great week to practice that risk management and just being careful, because it is rough, and it also is Thursday, so it's all right. All right, here we go, back to it. I'm gonna little rant real quick because that's crazy, man. That daily time frame is nuts. So we have our 9:30 right there. So we do have a volume balance in there. I do want to see us take out a high, and we start to dump immediately after taking that. So we left these relative highs, but I think on that, yeah, like, how is ES so much far lower than NAS? It just doesn't make much sense. We didn't even take the high though, so that's an SMT at the high. We have I need to find my first presented fair value gap. This is our first presented. Right there, yeah. See, like, that's why that's kind of throwing it off. Look at all these first presented fair value gaps. We're just messing around. Price keeps opening the same day New York session. It's around not the same day, around the same time. Can't even see straight on this damn chart. So we're pretty heavy. Not coming into this 1 minute fair value gap right here is telling me that we are pretty heavy towards these lows, and then potentially even these lows. Let's see here. Yeah, like, this is just ridiculous. Trading these types of markets is just whack. This is whack. This like, I remember this time, it was not the best trading for me. However, when price is starting to leave, especially like we left this fair value gap up here, we left this one, and it's starting to leave it and be like, and we're most likely gonna be very, very heavy. I feel like it's okay to kind of take both fair value gaps as a breakaway, because where is your confirmation in here? I mean, unless like you're like a G and you're kind of, you don't need to really confirmation and take a trade. You take one off like an inversion or something up here, maybe, I don't even know, then you're good. But my strategy requires precision. It requires markets to not move. What is this? 153 points in 1 hour. Makes sense, but like, geez, man. I'm expecting lower prices too, but I don't know to where. Because now we have our daily low. We took out our daily low. Wow, we were just dumping. Yeah, this is the tariffs talks that Trump had going on way back in the day. Okay, so now we're finding some kind of structure here. We're in this 15-minute kind of range. See, look, this is what I wanted to see yesterday, but we wanted this daily high, so like it's very much manipulating. Like, we left these relatives, didn't want to take them, and we dumped back into a second daily fair value gap. And this reminds me now, so coming into our second daily fair value gap, this makes me bearish longer term, to see price take out these lows and these lows, and like, now I'm kind of like, I know that we dump far down, coming around this time, but yeah, no, once we see that we have our two fair value gap set up and then it's not holding that upper fair value gap, we can basically want lower prices, longer term, and in this case, sell side liquidity, which would be down here. So yeah, I believe this is going to consolidate for the rest of the morning. I don't even want to really mess with it. But, you know, we will see. Did ES leave something relative? No, it didn't. It just dumped. I'm feeling I might just take something just to try it out and see. And potentially see, you know, what kind of happens from here. But we do have another setup right here, where we would take our high. The only thing I don't like about it is that we didn't, you know, come back into our daily, tap into that upper, but that could just show even more weakness to the downside. It is also 1040. It's going to be another low risk trade, and yeah, that is our fair value gap I want to see respected. Right there, and is also on top of our 1 minute order block that broke structure and then took us lower. We also broke structure, tapped into our order block up here, so I would like that trade to the downside, but we will see if it even plays out. Stop loss would be above that fair value gap, not above that fair value, above this candle high, and not in that fair value gap, but in that candle high, right above it. And then we would put our, we would trail that right there. This market is just whack for me. I remember trading this and then not getting any entries because price was just leaving. It was leaving. It was leaving. It was just really heavy. It did not want any type of not 250 on it. 17. Fully expecting to get stopped here just because the conditions. There's not something I'll take on a fund account. So once I see that we take kind of like these lows, you know, I'll be like, all right, here we go. And then also if we have an SM, yeah, we did. So that was kind of my idea to get rid of at least 50% at that SMT with ES at those lows. And then you can see why we want to take partials at that SMT, because ES definitely took, oh, it didn't. So that's even better. So this is a great example of taking, you know, your partials and you know, kind of taking out what you want to see, because, you know, we had this, like, what is this? We had a very textbook trade, in my opinion. So if you look at it, it's 15-minute double fair value gap paired onto that 1 minute time frame. So we're heavy bearish. We had this crazy sweep, left relative highs and just dumped. So like, why are we leaving relative highs? We're very bearish. Why are we very bearish? We leave one fair value gap and we leave two 15-minute fair value gaps. We come up in this 15-minute fair value gap. We show rejection. This candle has not closed yet by the time I entered. God, my neck is dying. I don't know if you can hear Riley, but she's snoring like crazy. We had this fair value gap lower one get respected. So that is a break of liquidity sweep, break of structure with this candle, get our second fair value gap in there. Then you go down the 1 minute. We see, wow, it's also a 118 point trade. I didn't even know that. Not 118, but like 100 at least. Yeah, 100. So we then came back up in our 15-minute fair value gap, and we did not tap into our lower daily, our lower, you know, the lower quadrant of the daily fair value gap. We didn't even tap into this line. So that could basically tell me that we are weak. Then I get this very nice setup. So we have a sweep, we break structure with this candle. See how this candle opens, comes back into this one, this candle comes back into this one, which gives me that order block. So that gives me that reaction to believe that this is a breakaway gap. So this would be a breakaway gap. And then we also have, if you look here, we break because we broke structure with this candle right here to the downside. But then we broke structure again to the upside with this candle. And what do? We come back up and we tap into the consequent encroachment of it. So we have 1 liquidity sweep, 2 order block, 3 breakaway gap, 4 breaker block, 5 our lower fair value gap. And then we also have this, so 6. That's 6 confluences in one, basically, to that will kind of lead us to think of a bearish expansion. And then also, we are entering 1040, and that macro should have took us into this low, in my opinion. And then a partial. So you see, we're break even for the week with 1 good trade that I was up about 1,000 because I was down like 500, risking 250. So it's a 1 to 8 ratio if it fully hit, but we took a partial at a 1 to 5. So you can kind of see how that works. That even though you would lose twice in the week, it's still kind of rewarding when this setup happens, because your stop loss can be very, very minimal when you are correct. And yeah, that's the next trade. So I'm surprised that didn't work out. I believe we'll probably go lower and definitely take out that low. And we'll see if it even, will play out. We'll see. I can see a little bear flag forming here. Sorry, bull flag or whatever. I don't know what they mean. I think that was a stop. Yeah, that was a stop. But yeah, you guys kind of get the point though. I get the point. Very simple trade. Everything was lined up perfectly, and you just execute. Next. And I believe this is going to be it's going to be Friday. Hopefully it lets me trade New York session Friday, because FX replay be tweaking. All right, so coming to Friday, we have this high that just got swept. And then now we are back in our daily. I don't even want to mark that shit. I don't want to mark that out. And now we're back in our daily fair value gap on the larger time frame. But remember, we touched this lower one. So personally, I still don't care. I don't care about higher prices off this fair value gap anymore. I want to see what I can use it to go lower. Potentially, we might want to take these highs today. But we will see if we want to, because those are some very, very clean relative equal highs on a larger time frame. We just have so much noise up here. I just can't even think. Can't even think with that up there. Okay, so we have. I always be skipping to 7 o'clock. So our 6:30, and then let's just keep going. So 7. Always having these crazy candles at 7 a.m. That is our first presented fair value gap on Friday. Let's see if we leave it open. And we do. We're starting to go into one of our other first presenteds of the week. And we are pumping. We are pumping up, up, up. We want to get up there. There's no trade in here for me. Maybe if I go to ES. ES is in a whole different world. I'm not even going to be looking at it. Screw ES for right now. We have our first fair value gap. And then we have another one that just got created, but it does not matter to me. This price leg is too weird for us to even think about that. So we just pumped up. Doesn't make any sense, bro. How many? You didn't even tell me how many points that is, man. That is not 50 points. 48 to, I guess that is 50 points. All right, regardless. That was I don't know what to expect from that. Yeah, there was nothing in here to even enter off of. So let's take out them highs if we want to. 7:30 comes in, and then we leave them. We leave them. Oh my god. Okay, good. We took them. Okay. So that is good. And then we set those big old highs now. And remember, I'm still bearish on the week. We could want to go higher. But remember, since I did see that upper fair value gap be disrespected, I will be bearish going into Friday. Definitely down to 7 a.m. lows, because we're having these crazy ranges. That's why I was kind of thrown off in the first like 2 days, because we're having these 100-point ranges easily. That just doesn't make any sense. Like, when do you ever see this in a morning session? You don't. In the pre-market. All right, 803. So 803 comes around. Got a sweep, no break of structure, so no trade. All right, I'm going to 9:30 open. This is ridiculous. I don't want to be watching this. All right, so we just get a monumental dump to the downside. We get a monumental dump to the downside. Trying to see if there's anything in here. You know, we have our first fair value gap up here. This one, but it's all like whack. You know, that's not good conditions to be trading in, especially in the morning session pre-market. I guarantee it's probably gonna just come down into our straight into our target. You know, it was just so weird. This time was so weird. I don't even know what to think of it, really. I don't. Let's get that first presented for value gap right there. So I like how we came up into our consequent crushment of our daily, and we are starting to reject hard. I would honestly like to see if price wants to come down into our daily quadrant levels on this wick. There's just so much going on now that it makes it like crazy. I could just 1-point it on that one. So we have our first presented fair value gap right there. Another one. Let's see if we have a volume balance in there. We do not have a volume balance. So this is at the point where I'm kind of questioning whether to short based off of willingness. So we are so unwilling to tap into that 1 minute fair value gap. Actually, hold on. Let me see that. Yeah, we're unwilling to tap in this upper fair value gap, and that basically tells me that we're probably really bearish. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but I'm going to try that out, and I'm going to see. You know, actually, no, it's not part of the setup, guys. It's just not. You know, that's not really something I want to try out. So we have, yeah. See, that's why. You know, you got to be smart. You know, that's still the unprofitable trader in me. He's trying to get out. So we have this low down here. I'm definitely taking a look at. You know, we have a breaker right here on the 15-minute that we just tapped into. We also tapped into our first presented for value gap. That's our first dump down. Yeah, no, like if you're an ICT trader, I mean, what are you going to trade here? Rejection of our first presented for value gap. What we didn't leave that open because we tapped into that volume balance. But yeah, I'm just going to keep on looking for lower prices. I want some kind of buy side manipulation, but we're probably not going to get it. So I'm just going to take the short based off of that. Yeah, I like that. Basically, the idea, I believe ES probably had some kind of sweep. No sweep. However, I'm still safe with taking shorts down into stop loss above that fair value gap, down into our daily fair value gap low, which is also our daily wick that, you know, we put in over there. I do like that. It's kind of messy. You know, we come up, this is our, we come up into here. This would be a nice short to downside. I was hoping for this fair value gap to remain open. We didn't, so no trade. And then we breaker this. We start to push lower. We don't have any bullish structure at all in there. I'm going to see if we put an SFT. 1002 with 1011. 1002 with 1011. 1002 with 1011. We did not have an SMT, but however, we also do have a setup on ES, the same exact one. Two of those lows that are right there, possibly. I don't really like taking trades like that, but since price is so bearish that we are just melting lower, I will be risking. I'll be risking that. Can't forget that volume balance, guys. Just can't. Okay, and then that would be a short down into our daily wick quadrant level with a 9. With a 9. Stop loss, 9 lots, doesn't matter. First partial would be at right here, but since price is so heavy, I'm just gonna be willing to take off 25% and then move lower. Final take profit would be our lower daily fair value gap. And of course, I screwed that up, but I believe it will come back down into there. Just go back anywhere, please. You know, that's not a sell side take, let's be honest. All right, let's just cancel it there. Because my full position would be canceled right there. Okay, so that's the logic. That's the logic behind, you know, a little back testing. Let me go right here. Let me just mark this out and show you exactly what I was talking about. And I'm gonna go over kind of what I seen. Volume. You have to watch those volume balances. You cannot not watch them. And we have our second fair value gap right there. I will include the volume balance. It's gonna kind of look like a mess. Our BA, our breakaway gap, and then our stop loss would be above that high with the civvy, and then yeah, target our wick. Okay, so let's kind of go over the idea of this trade. We come in tonight. We obviously, you know, we take out our relative equal highs, our New York session highs. A lot of liquidity above there. Pump up 7 a.m. session. Everyone's chasing price. Smart money reversal at the high. Consolidate, sweep, go lower. Price is extremely bearish. Come into 9:30 open. Dump. Put our first presented order block. Price comes up in there. Respects the order block, and the first presented breaks lower. Puts in this for value gap. Rejects it. If there was 2 there, it would be nice. Probably on the 32nd, there was some kind of rejection here, possible setup. However, I like to stick to my 1 minute. I found that that's when this strategy works best. And then we had a little buy side sweep right there at 10:11, and then we put in one for value gap, respect it lower, and then this is what I like to see off a little sweep. This is what I identify as our liquidity sweep. You know, you would say, you know, why'd you enter without liquidity sweep? This is our liquidity sweep. We barely swept liquidity. We break structure with this candle right here. This is our order block. We would break structure with this candle, and then we would start to move higher. Move lower. And then first we put in our breakaway gap, and then we put in our SIBI that I want to see respected. And I'm gonna go over that after. And then, you know, candle comes in, rejects bearish, immediately sell. Stop loss at that SIBI high. And when you're also including the volume balance, they're going to intersect. So you're going to want to put it at the lower of that candle and not at the breakaway gap. Because remember, you're trying to save as much money, and you do not want to put your stop loss basically. Like, you don't want to see the breakaway get filled. So you want that stop loss to be right at that candle high, candle open, I meant. And then your partial would be that 0.25 daily wick. You know, price rejected off at once, came up, and then obviously broke through, tapped into our sell side, which is our daily wick low, and then, you know, it wanted to probably tap into it again right there. Is when we fully took out that liquidity, in my opinion. And then earlier, remember, you wanted to sell off of the willingness of this not getting filled. And yes, it's a good idea, you know, hindsight, if we're pretty bearish. However, you can't let yourself put your your stop loss there, because you're not having that confirmation. When I see I have this confirmation and I enter on that confirmation, I'm basically confirming the fact that I can put my stop loss so tight. I don't have to, put it up here. I'm confirming I can keep my stop tight. I don't have to put it up here. I don't put it there. I don't put it at the damn high. I don't have to put it at this order block. I don't have to put it at this breakaway gap. I simply just put it at that CB high because I want to see it be respected. And even if, maybe down the line, once I get a little bit more refined and, and I have more time in the market to be able to see this, I could start to put my fair value gap, my stop loss right above the consequent encroachment to get even more risk out of my trade, or maybe even save just a little bit more because it's contracts. So yeah, stop loss with a high for now, and then target that low. And then, good that you didn't take this. However, when you see this and you want to enter kind of on price willingness, you could put your stop loss above, a certain first fair value gap, 0.25, 50% of an order block. In this case, that would have worked. And then you would short and you would target. You could have got crazy crazy amount of points on there. But, that's just kind of how it is, hindsight king. But yeah, no, that is the backtesting session. That was a crazy week. I kind of picked a crazy week to do it. And that was also FOMC meeting minutes week. That wasn't the normal week to trade. Okay, I need to see analytics, please. But yeah, that was, let me see. It better have my stuff. I better have it saved, or else I'm gonna lose it. I gotta get back in the gym. Okay, I don't know how I have too many days, but you can kind of see that, even though on this major kind of like, I would say, wild week, that was the probably one of the most wild weeks of trading of this year so far. 200-point ranges in the span of 10 minutes, and we still had a 50% win rate over a week. We took 2 small losses based on basically conditions conditions and the type of trade that we wanted to place. We obviously de-risked to 0.5 of our total risk on the day, and then we stuck to that kind of going into the rest of the week to kind of capital conserve once we saw that the market was not acting in a good way that we want to see. So that's how you kind of come out from rags to riches, I should say. But yeah, no, that was nice. You can kind of see how important kind of having that daily time frame bias was, because we had, remember that two fair value gap sequence, but since we tapped into that lower fair value gap, I could be bearish for the rest of the week and have a good basically bias going into the rest of the week, going to Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday. Oh no, sorry. Was it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? It doesn't even show my trade on Friday, I don't think. Hold on a second. Bro, I hate how FX Replay does this garbage, bro. Okay, never mind then. So yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 4 trades. Monday, no trade because it was that random, I believe it was a holiday, bank holiday. And yeah, that's kind of the backtesting session. So I hope I learned a lot on that shit. I hope I did. And that's our daily close on. That is our daily close on NASDAQ. I would want to see basically this weekly fair value gap get tapped into, definitely, and then see if we can start figuring out what we want in here, because I feel like we have some lower prices destined for NASDAQ, but we will see. But yeah, that is it for the video, and yeah, I'm gonna get to it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Hopefully, it's gonna be a good day. We got FOMC in the PM session, so let me do a little prediction. I'm not really hoping for anything in the AM session. Just looking at this price action that happened today, and I'm still not giving up on this because wow, that's brutal. But yeah, no, we'll see how it goes. And I'm aiming for a trade for the 250 macro tomorrow. 250 macro. I'm gonna aim for longs. Actually, no, shorts and the 250 macro. I think that'll be like kind of the play. And yeah, just stay safe. I'll see you later.